Somewhere in your bank account right now, there is a charge you have not thought about in months. It is not large enough to trigger an alert. It is not small enough to be obviously wrong. It is just there, quietly, automatically, every single month. You signed up during a free trial, or a promotional deal, or a moment of genuine enthusiasm. And then life moved on. The service did not. In a 2025 paper, Batra and Srinivasan confirmed that this is not an accident. The interfaces designed around subscription cancellation are engineered to keep you paying, using the same cognitive science that explains why humans resist change, fear loss, and avoid effort. This video is about exactly how that engineering works. Here is something that happens to almost everyone. You sit down, maybe at year's end, maybe after a confusing bank statement, and you actually count your subscriptions, not just the ones you use, all of them. Streaming services from a free trial you forgot to cancel, a fitness app you opened twice, a news site you subscribed to for one article during a stressful news cycle, a cloud storage tier you upgraded during a move and never downgraded. And you feel something specific in that moment, not just surprise at the total, something closer to embarrassment, because you know intellectually that you have the ability to cancel any one of these. The button exists, the option is available, and yet here they are, month after month. That feeling, that specific mix of friction and inertia, is not a personal failure. It is a designed outcome. The industry has a name for the deliberate engineering of that friction. They call it sludge, and understanding it is the first step to defeating it. Here is the science behind why this happens. In his landmark book, Misbehaving, Nobel laureate Richard Thaler documents a foundational principle of behavioral economics, the status quo bias. Humans have a powerful default preference for whatever the current situation already is. Not because the current situation is best, because changing it requires effort, and effort has a psychological cost that our brains dramatically overweight. Thaler showed that this bias operates far outside rational calculation. It is not about whether the subscription is worth $12 a month. It is about the activation energy required to change the default state. Now layer on what Cass Sunstein calls sludge, his term for the deliberate piling up of friction that makes beneficial actions harder. In his book Sludge, Sunstein distinguishes between nudges, which guide behavior using ease, and sludge, which discourages behavior using friction. Subscription companies are not nudging you to stay, they are sludging you. They are making the path to cancellation just difficult enough, just confusing enough, just effortful enough that your status quo bias kicks in, and you do nothing. Here is the second layer of the science. Thaler, building on decades of work with Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, established that humans feel the pain of a loss roughly twice as intensely as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. This is loss aversion, and subscription companies have learned to weaponize it at the exact moment you try to leave. When you hit the cancel button on a streaming service, you are not shown a neutral confirmation screen. You are shown what you are about to lose: your watch list, your favorites, your progress, your personalized recommendations built over years. A 2025 ACM study on dark patterns in subscription cancellation documented this tactic precisely: the systematic deployment of loss framing language at the cancellation decision point. The goal is to transform the act of canceling from a financially rational decision into a felt loss. You are not saving $12 a month, you are losing your watch list. That reframe, from financial gain to emotional loss, is enough to pause a significant proportion of users mid-cancellation. They close the tab, the charge renews. Here's how it is being used against you. The first and most structurally documented dark pattern is what UX researchers call the Roach-Motel flow. Easy to get in, designed to be merely impossible to get out. Amazon Prime is the textbook case. Signing up takes under 2 minutes. One click, one confirmation, done. Canceling requires navigating through a minimum of 6 sequential screens, each one introducing a new decision, a new offer, a new reframe. The ACM's 2025 study on dark patterns in subscription cancellation cataloged this architecture across dozens of major platforms and found Roach-Motel flows operating as standard design practice. Not edge cases, not oversights, standard practice. The pattern exploits both status quo bias and what behavioral economists call decision fatigue. Each additional screen, each additional choice point, depletes the cognitive energy you have available for the cancellation task. By screen 4, Many users accept a pause or a discount rather than continue. By screen 6, a meaningful percentage simply abandon the attempt entirely. The subscription renews. The process worked exactly as designed. The second trap is more psychological and more personal. It is called confirmshaming. The technique uses the cancel confirmation dialog, the screen that appears when you click cancel, not to confirm your choice, but to shame you out of it. The button that would complete your cancellation is labeled something like, "No thanks, I do not want to save money," or "I prefer to pay full price," or the one that has been widely documented across health and fitness apps, "No thanks, I do not care about my health." Batra and Srinivasan's 2025 research on dark patterns and consumer decision-making identified confirmshaming as one of the highest converting dark patterns in subscription retention, precisely because it targets identity, not just inertia. You are not just canceling a service. You are, according to the button label, declaring something about who you are. A person who does not value their health. A person who does not care about their money. Most people will not click a button that insults them, so they close the dialogue, and the subscription renews. This is not persuasion. It is engineered self-doubt. The third trap is structural concealment. This is the deliberate burial of the cancellation option itself. Not just making it hard to complete, making it hard to find. Subscription cancellations hidden inside nested account settings menus. Cancel options that only appear after you have called a phone number during business hours. Services that require you to email a support address and wait for a response before the cancellation is processed. Batra and Srinivasan's 2025 research documented the economic impact of this concealment strategy directly. Interfaces that require phone call cancellations retain subscribers at significantly higher rates than those offering digital cancellation. Not because the subscribers are more satisfied, but because the procedural cost of calling during business hours is high enough to outlast most people's motivation. This is Sunstein's Sludge operating at its most naked. It is friction deployed without pretense. The company knows you want to leave. The architecture is specifically designed to exhaust that want before you can act on it. Every hold minute on a cancellation phone line is a sludge tax on your time. And time, unlike the $12, feels impossible to get back. The behavioral science that makes these traps effective also tells you exactly how to disarm them. Start with the subscription audit. Set a 20-minute timer. Pull up every bank statement from the last 3 months. Highlight every recurring charge, monthly, annual, quarterly. List them, all of them. The audit converts an invisible autopilot drain into a visible, conscious decision. That visibility alone is what Thaler calls a choice architecture reset. You are forcing a deliberate reevaluation of every default you have drifted into. For each subscription on your list, apply a single test. Did I actively use this in the last 30 days? Not passively, actively. If the answer is no, cancel it today before you close the tab. Use a dedicated virtual card number for future subscriptions. Services like privacy.com generate single-use or merchant-locked card numbers that make unauthorized renewal impossible. When you hit a Roach-Motel flow, do not engage with the intermediate screens. Navigate directly to account settings via your browser URL if possible, bypassing the designed cancellation path entirely. And when you encounter a confirmshaming dialog, read the shame button out loud. Naming the manipulation neutralizes it. You are not the person that button is trying to make you feel like. You are the person who just learned how this works. The subscriptions you are paying for and not using are not a reflection of your discipline. They are a reflection of deliberately engineered behavioral architecture that was designed, tested, and optimized to outlast your intention to cancel. Richard Thaler spent his career documenting the gap between how humans are supposed to behave according to economic theory and how we actually behave under real conditions of friction, loss, and inertia. Cass Sunstein gave that friction a name. What these researchers built as a framework for understanding, companies have built into their interfaces as a retention strategy. Now you know the mechanism. The status quo bias that makes defaults sticky. The loss aversion that makes cancellation feel like sacrifice. The sludge that converts a 10-second task into a 20-minute ordeal. Once you can see the architecture, it loses its grip. The audit is not a one-time fix. Run it every quarter. Make the invisible visible on a schedule. That is the single most effective financial habit you can build from this. Not a budgeting app, not a spending tracker. If this changed how you think about the subscriptions you cannot seem to cancel, hit subscribe. We publish every Wednesday.